Hey guys, this is Sun Tzu, and there seems to be a whole big discussion about, is deathball back? And for me, I feel like the terms are being used incorrectly right now in Dota, and I felt like there was a need for someone to just come and clear things up and sort of just talk through what are different types of playing aggressive Dota. And so you start out with the basic three principles of aggression. You can gank, you can push, or you can look for team fights, and that's your basic aggression. And then you have like the counterpoint to that is your more passive types of play, which is essentially creating space and allowing one person to farm, or you can try and farm up the whole team, and that's where you get the sort of 2-3 core lineups that were popular at one time. And then you get this sort of this is something that IG especially used to do. If you look back at like TI2, when they were farming, they had like one guy farming the lane, and they had the rest of the team around them, and they could sort of farm the jungle, but it was still it was protecting that one guy and letting him farm the lane. And so those are like different types of how you can play a bit more passive and a bit more like farm heavy and so forth. But in terms of the aggression, now the thing is that it gets problematic because a lot of the different strategies that we're talking about, they're actually mixes of either of pushing and ganking, or ganking and team fighting, or whatever. That's sort of the difference between what these things are. Now if you're just say purely pushing, that's one of the more simple ones. A pure push lineup essentially just either has heroes that push with minion armies, or that heal up, and they aren't looking to take a fight and then push, and they aren't looking to win a team fight and then push. They aren't looking to sort of they aren't impossible to fight into. The problem is that essentially they're able to put out so much pressure and so much damage to a tower that they can get that tower and back off, because you can't kill everything in time. So they're essentially relying on you lacking damage output in terms of just clearing the creep waves early on. So that's sort of the basic push lineup, and then you sort of from there you can get into what I call hard push, which is essentially this is sort of, it gets closer to the death balls at this point, and this is sort of precursor to those things, where you run stuff that essentially has this big tanky dude that's up front, and it doesn't push, but it sort of forces its way through the towers. This is especially a way to break the base for these slightly slower push lineups. I call it hard push because it isn't like naturally pushing, it is forcing that push in a way. And this is stuff like, basically any hero that can work as a good frontline tank. You can do this with Lone Druid, for example. It's probably one of the better examples. Especially like Alliance had at one point this strategy that was like Lone Druid. When they pair with it, they had Chen in that strategy. There's Leshrac, and I think they used to run Puck. Puck was just there for like team fight control and stuff like that. But basically, the idea was, oh yeah, Juggernaut. That was when Juggernaut Ward and the Syllabear had you could use Armlet on Syllabear. So Syllabear got heavy amounts of health, and then you had the percentage-based Juggernaut healing ward, and you just use that to push. And whenever the opposing team tried to fight into that, you just healed it up with the mech and Chen ulti. So that basically meant that you couldn't kill him off. So the lone druid bear just took the towers, and this was like a 20-25. Like if you're going straight up, really full all in push, and we don't really see that. Like if you think back to like TI2 EG, like when Melk was drafting, that's one of his sort of like fallback strategies. If he doesn't know quite how to deal with a draft, he just randomly drafts something that's super heavy push, and you either win before 20 minutes or you lose the game. So that's sort of how you approach push. And then sort of when you look at that from a ganking perspective, you look at sort of what can I do in terms of ganking. Well, you can snowball off ganking, and that is picking heroes that just benefit a lot from ganking, and you get your Storm Spirits, you get for example Chaos Knights work out great in this type of style, Lifestealer, Queen of Pain. These are all heroes that greatly benefit from ganking and from getting those kills, and that can really get out of control and really run the game. And the first game between Secret and IG, what people were calling that deathball on Reddit, and or some people, I don't mean to say that most or all by any means, but yeah, that was essentially, that was a snowball lineup. That was just Storm Spirit got out of control. Storm Spirit could do whatever he wanted, and what do you do? So yeah, that's actually a lot of what we're seeing right now. It's just snowball lineups. Now, snowballs are essentially the purest kind of benefiting from kills kind of aggression. That is the purest form of that, of the ganking lineup that ends up becoming really strong very fast. But there is sort of a close cousin to that, is the face rush, which was what was going the strategy, the type of stuff that IG ran at TI2, which was essentially Luna and stuff like that. It's this sort of kind of it pushes, it gets more into pushing than a snowball lineup, because it pushes by being able to sort of get kills and force team fights, and then pushes from that way. So they aren't super strong pushing lineups technically, but they combine some of that like team fighting and ganking, and it's sort of that's sort of how they get at it. And then you sort of consider the deathball. Now, deathballs came straight out of team fight lineups, and what they were actually called in terms of China, when this sort of idea got developed there, they talked about tempo and just being able to out tempo your opponent. I know a lot of you probably play Hearthstone, so you probably have a bit of idea what people mean with tempo, but so yeah, what that basically did was, it was essentially low initiation lineups that had great team fight, but they didn't really have a good way to start a fight. But they didn't need to, because they were able to group up and just walk into towers and walk into things, and because the opponent can't take that fight, they can't initiate that fight. So what you get is that they have to back off, and they have to give up those towers, and then you get the gold lead, and you snowball off of that a bit, and then you get more items, and you get those mechs, and you get stuff going, and you just push with that. But you aren't actually really having a traditional push lineup. Now there is stuff like, you'd get like the DP ultimate or the Razor ultimate, and those are pushing tools, but they're also team fighting tools. And more than anything, you actually don't use them to push that often, not until you actually get to the high ground. And at that point, it's more than anything, it's a deterrent. You put up a double Razor ulti, the enemy team can't engage into that. The benefit of the side benefit, so to speak, is that it reduces armor and you just destroy things. But it's the deterrent from you taking a fight with them. So I hope that cleared it up a bit, because this is one of these things that a lot of this vernacular, a lot of this language is made up, and sort of we have to figure out over time how useful different parts of that language is. But for me, at least, if we're going to be using these terms, we need to know what they mean and need to understand how we use them, because there's a lot of information that gets lost if every snowballing lineup ends up being called a deathball. So yeah, just figured I'd help things out and sort of clear up a bit of these things. So catch you later.